Welcome back, everybody. We got Zayn Kalyan, director of Altus Gold. Altus Gold is a little different here. They're still private. They're a gold exploration and development company focused on assets in Nevada with some near-term production potential. They have signed a deal with Scorpio Gold, which I believe they're in the middle of a transaction and raising capital on, but I think it's a super exciting asset in Nevada, some really high-grade historic holes and a historical resource, and I'll let Zayn run through it. Thanks, Zayn.
Thanks for that, Arlen, and good morning, everyone, and thanks for joining. I'm just going to share my screen here. There we go. Okay, so I'll jump right in. So Altus Gold was a project that we started in almost exactly a year ago, October 2022, really with the focus on putting together a Nevada-based gold exploration company. That quickly evolved from last October till now, when in May we became aware of a project that was directly adjacent to our exploration project called the Mineral Ridge Mine. And the Mineral Ridge Mine, and I'll bring up this map just so you can visualize it. It's held by a company called Scorpio Gold. Scorpio Gold acquired the mine in 2012, and or between 2010 and 2012, in a series of transactions from a private equity firm after the previous company had gone bankrupt. And was able to put the mine back into production, and was producing from about 2011 till 2018, when the mine was put into care and maintenance. And we were pretty excited about our exploration project, where the Mineral Ridge Mine represents about 2 miles of strike at the end of the ridge, at the base of the ridge, which sits right above Silver Peak, Nevada, where Albemarle has their lithium, the only producing lithium project in the US. And we were able to basically lock up the claims that were directly adjacent to that represent the rest of the 8 miles of strike along the ridge. And there's been some high-grade sampling, some high-grade discoveries over the years on that ridge, all kind of ounce per ton, very promising initial results, and really kind of represented a great target for drilling and further exploration adjacent to this mine. So the Mineral Ridge project, as we became more aware of what was there, became even more interesting. It is a heap leach mine, but one of the historical issues with that mine has always been that it's only been able to get 60% recovery from the heap leach. So in 2018, Scorpio did a feasibility study to build a 4,000 ton per day mill, which would drastically increase the efficiencies of the mine, so getting it to 90% plus recovery, but also position it to be able to be kind of for this kind of hub and spoke model, where there's other mines in the area that could then potentially support this mill, and move beyond. And then as we continue exploration on the Northstar, really be a kind of a hub to be able to kind of consolidate the ridge and build a much larger project. And that's also one of the other concerns historically with the mine as well, has been that it's only ever had 500,000 ounces, so it was never really had the size. But with the potential of the Northstar, you really are in this position to kind of expand the resource to a multi-million ounce potential across this entire ridge, really kind of validating the building of the mine, or building of the mill, and expansion of the mine, and kind of reactivating the what's there at the mine today. So I'll just kind of continue, just to kind of give you some of the metrics on the feasibility study. So feasibility study was done at $1,200 gold. It had a $30 million NPV, $35 million NPV at $1,200 gold. The sensitivity study that was done on that feasibility study, if you get to $1,600 gold, you're north of $100 million NPV, which is significant for a number of reasons. But a lot of people who are familiar with gold in Nevada, especially development stage, exploration stage projects, late stage exploration, are aware that there's a number of projects that have $100 million NPVs in Nevada, but are not necessarily trading anywhere near those values. And one of the unique things about Mineral Ridge is that it's fully permitted. So this is not a 5-year project to get this thing into production. This is an 18-month lead time to break ground on the mill and get into production with these increased efficiencies at the 90%. The numbers on the 2018 feasibility study, even just assuming the existing 500,000 ounces that are there, are very healthy. It's got a really good mine life, really good payback. You're paying yourself back in 2.5 years. So it is a very economic project. And with the Northstar and the exploration potential that we have on the Northstar, it makes it even more exciting. I'll just kind of continue here just to show, this kind of shows the existing reserves that exist at the mine. And here's some imagery of the project. There's significant assets, hard assets, at Mineral Ridge, including a full ADR plant that was all custom built, which has significant value today. And this is hard asset value. But one of the most exciting things for us as we start to look at exploring Mineral Ridge, or sorry, Northstar, is the assay lab. So there's an assay lab that's inside the gates at the mine. It's within 2 miles of where where we intend to be drilling, so we can be doing real-time assaying as we're drilling, which gives a lot of value to doing continuing exploration as we're drilling. This just kind of shows the Northstar target. It is this collapsed caldera feature at the top of the ridge where you can kind of see where all these fluids came up and then collapsed, and it was a collapsed dome feature. All of these white lines represent block faults that exist along in this area, and then you can see those are correlated with the high grade surface samples that we received. These show some VTEM that was flown over the top of the ridge about a year and a half ago, and we've been able to interpret this to define some drill targets, so drill holes that we intend to be drilling in the next 3 to 4 months. And we've just received, actually, as of last week, the drill permits for Northstar. So we intend to be drilling imminently on the Northstar. This is just another VTEM cross section showing the proposed drill holes. And yeah, this imagery shows some of the rocks, and yeah. So I'll kind of back up here, and I know I got a little bit ahead of myself when I was talking about Mineral Ridge, but the transaction that we contemplated originally was, we have our private company, Altus Gold, that has the Northstar asset in it. And we started talking to Scorpio and became aware of kind of Scorpio's position. Scorpio's been living off capital that they got from selling an asset in 2012 to Gold Standard Ventures, and they've received significant capital from that, and that's been the money that's kind of kept the engine going since then. They also received a little bit of investment on top of that, but really that's been the core of the base of their capital over the past 10 years. Today, Scorpio is in a position where it does need to raise capital. It is halted currently because they don't have 6 months working capital, and they need to raise it. And the team is in a position where they do need some help. So we proposed that we would sell our private company to Scorpio, and this has been announced. And Scorpio would reconsolidate their share base from 210 million shares to 35 million shares. We would vend in our private company for 25 million shares, and that would give us the control block of the company, as well as taking over management and the board of the combined entity, which would we intend to eventually rename Altus Gold. So that's kind of where the structure is at today. We've lent Scorpio about $1 million Canadian, almost $1 million Canadian, secured against all their assets. We're intending to raise them an additional $4 million between now and the end of October, and that will close the transaction in a reviewable transaction by the TSX, not a fundamental. So it will once the transaction closes, the company will come back, the combined entity will come back to trade. And that's what we're currently marketing right now is a raise. So it's a $3 million raise with an additional $1 million bridge on top of that, for a total of $4 million. And I'll get into the terms of that financing here at the end. But as I said, Mineral Ridge was really the initial driver for us to do this transaction, and that we have the Northstar, and combining the whole ridge presents significant value with the feasibility study and all of the hard assets that Scorpio has at Mineral Ridge. But as we started to do our due diligence, we became aware of another project the other project that Scorpio had, which is the Manhattan Wedge, or Manhattan Gold Wedge project, that's located about 10 miles north of 10 miles south of Round Mountain, also near Tonopah. So it's about 100 kilometers as the crow flies from the Mineral Ridge project. So very close, just on the other side of Tonopah. And the Gold Wedge project is particularly interesting in that it was originally, or part of it was originally part of the package that came with the Pinion mine that was sold to Gold Standard and was most recently sold by Gold Standard to Orla for $250 million. And the other side of that other project in that package was the Gold Wedge. And the Gold Wedge is interesting in that it has a 400 ton per day operational mill that's completely operational. It's a gravity mill. It does need a flotation circuit added to it to really make it feasible, but the gravity circuit that is there, it does have use. And then it's got a significant underground workings. So it's got about 6 miles of underground tunnels, all accessible, all in good standing, and all permitted as well for mining. So it's particularly interesting, what's that Gold Wedge, but what was even more interesting as we became more and more aware of what was there was the drill results from the 2022 and 2021 campaigns that Scorpio ran on the Manhattan project. And the Manhattan project was a project that was acquired from Kinross. It's directly adjacent to Gold Wedge. So as a consolidated entity, we call them the Manhattan Wedge project. And it was acquired from Kinross in 2020. And the reason Kinross sold it was it really only made sense if you had both packages. But Manhattan was a historical mine. It was mined in the 80s by Echo Bay. And it has significant value. There's two very large pits, but what was particularly interesting to us was the drill results that we got. And as you can see from the slide here, very high grade for Nevada, grade intercepts in 2021 and 2022. Many of them at surface, which was really, really exciting for us. So this is really kind of presents a really great opportunity for exploration. And we've been continuing to reinterpret some of the results in Manhattan and rework some of the old drill holes. And also we've taken a lot of the historical drilling that was done by Kinross and Echo Bay and added that to the new drill results from that Scorpio's done in 2021 and 2022. And the initial indications that we're getting is that there is a significant resource there, and that we're very excited about the numbers that we're seeing initially. I think that it's always exciting when you have a project that's had over 1,200 drill holes in it and over 100,000 meters of drilling done. That's a significant capital investment, obviously, but it does really represent that there is significant value there and potential. So we really are excited to kind of continue to work on that project. I think it presents a great opportunity combined with the Mineral Ridge asset. And it really does give a lot more, it's a lot more of an exploration play, at least at the outset, in that there is going to be permitting that's necessary to continue to put that project back into production. But alongside that, there is some interesting things that we believe we can do with the operational mill that exists on Gold Wedge as well. I'll just kind of jump here. I know it's a little tougher to see this slide, but this just shows some of the high grade drilling that was done on the West Pit. And these show some additional drill holes that also have some good intercepts on them. This just shows the portal and some of the underground drilling. Scorpio actually does own an underground drill at Gold Wedge, which is great. It allows us to operate very cost effectively. And these are some images of the existing gravity mill, 400 ton per day gravity mill that exists at Manhattan. In terms of the team, we're actively building the team. It's getting bigger every day. Michael Townsend has a good reputation as a financier in Vancouver, and he's decided to go on as the interim CEO as we work through this transaction. Chris Zerga, who's the current CEO of Scorpio, really is he's a mine operator at the end of the day. That's what he has significant strength in that. He's operated multiple mines and large scale mines in Nevada, and has significant experience and resources in the area. And Chris is intending to go on as COO once we close the transaction, and continue to operate the projects. Stephen Craig, at the direction of the new management team, which we are actively growing, and we are actively looking to build out the executive board, including the CEO position, and really build a stronger team as we go. Stephen Craig is director, QP, the company. He's had numerous discoveries in the Walker Lane Trend, where both these projects are, Walker Lane Trend of Nevada, including the Rawhide Mine, which he did find as well. Paul Dockweiler is accomplished geologist. He was the junior, both him and Steve Craig worked at Mineral Ridge in the early 2000s, late 90s, early 2000s. Steve is the senior mine geologist. Paul is the junior mine geologist. Paul has then went on to become the head mine geologist for Mountain Pass and the rare earth project that is currently called MP Materials. And Paul he's not recognized REE expert, and he currently works for a large geologic consulting firm running their Las Vegas, Nevada office. Myself as director, been involved in raising significant capital for companies over the past 6-7 years, and this is really my core focus today is Altus Gold. And Brandon Rooks serves as an advisor. He's a geologist that works in our office, and there are a couple people who are not on this deck that we are actively building out the team on. Morgan Leckstrom, who's an accomplished mining engineer and mining CEO, who's joined the board, and he's continuing to really kind of advise the company and help us grow and really hone our strategy as we grow. So, and then we're actively building the team out. As I said, we're looking to bring on, as this is truly a development stage company, we need all the help we can get. We really want to build a strong team around it. And I think the two assets that we are attracting some great people, and we want to continue to build on that. Finally, I'll just talk about the share structure a little bit. I did touch upon it previously, but this gives some context and just some numbers. So as I said, Scorpio will roll back on a 6-for-1 basis from 210 million shares to 35 million shares. Altus Gold will be acquired for 25 million shares with the cap, and that 25 million shares also represents the capital that we've lent them to date, as well as the additional $1 million that will be lent. Or sorry, it doesn't, not the additional $1 million, but the $1 million that we've lent them to date. And then as a part of the transaction closing, we intend to raise $3 million at $3 million at 20 cents, which is a $12 million pre-money valuation, for a total of 75 million shares outstanding. So $15 million post-money valuation at 20 cents. It will be a sub-receipt, and it'll close upon closing the amalgamation of Scorpio Gold and Altus Gold. And our target there is to close that by the end of October. And it's a 20-cent unit with a full warrant at 30 cents for 2 years. And with that, I think I'm happy to take any questions and go from there.
Yeah, let's you talk about the assets that are within the company. Do you have some sort of estimated breakup value of what you're sitting on?
Yeah. So obviously there's a lot of resources there, a lot of hard assets in terms of when we asked Chris what he thought the replacement value of just Mineral Ridge alone was, it was probably about $30 million in hard assets there. And that's also, you have to consider that there's significant years and years, 10 years of permitting that have gone into building that mine, as well as the permitting that's necessary to build the mill too. So significant hard assets, I think, on the ground there. And then I think the feasibility study itself kind of shows that there's value in the assets in the ground too.
Yeah. And what about water rights?
Water rights is a big piece of it as well, and thanks for bringing that up. So Scorpio spent about $2 million drilling a well from the top of the ridge down to the valley floor, and that was actually one of the original reasons that we became interested in talking to Scorpio, was because we had heard that there's a bunch of lithium companies in the valley that were looking at buying the water rights from Scorpio. So we believe the water rights alone are probably have a couple $1 million in value in themselves. So.
Yeah. Okay. And then what's kind of the next process in regards to getting listed, raising capital? Like, do you have the definitive done with Scorpio, or where are we at here?
So we're anticipating signing the definitive this week. It's been going back and forth, but we've signed an amended LOI. We are very close on the final definitive. We had to go through some exchange approvals and talk to the exchange about kind of the structure, but we're very close on getting the definitive signed. And once the definitive signed, it really is kind of full speed ahead on getting the financing closed and marketing that heavily. So that's kind of our plan for the next 30 days. is to go really hard on marketing that financing and getting it closed as soon as we can. And once that financing's closed, the definitive will close and the company will come back to trade as a combined entity.
Now, you've had some pretty spectacular historical grades. Or do you think you'll be like focused more on the vicinity of where your known resources are more, or are you going to be going up to your Northstar project and doing some wildcat holes?
I think Northstar, we've defined about a $600,000 budget for Northstar, which I think will, and that's over the next 6 months. But I think that's going to be a pretty good. They are going to be wildcat holes, but I do think that there is a pretty good opportunity there. But I think the rest of our focus will really be on Manhattan, just because I think we'll be able to get great results. We know exactly where to drill. There's going to be a lot of confirmation drilling, and then I think beyond that, leveraging those drill holes to build a defined resource at on the Manhattan project.
Yeah. What's the magic number in Nevada for majors to kind of get excited about things like this?
Yeah, like as I said, I think 1 million ounces is kind of a good starting place. I think this $100 million NPV is often kind of a baseline. But I think if we can show, and we believe we can show this kind of multi-million ounce resource across 2 different projects, and potentially even Northstar alone. I think we're in a great spot, and particularly considering the grade that we have as well, and the permitting. The permitting for me is one of the things that really sets this project apart, especially at Mineral Ridge, is that having your permitting done and being able to get into production very fast makes this thing financeable. And when we're talking about the $50 million it costs to build a mill, or the $75 million you're going to need to kind of do the whole project, I think those numbers are very achievable, and it's a lot more financeable when you go to bank it, when you're saying this is not a 5-year project and you're going to be subject to fluctuation of the gold market, because you're going to be able to kind of plan this thing out for the next 18, 20 months.
The amount of time you save and the amount of money you save is incredible when you're in that situation. Okay, so you're raising some dough here. How do people on our show get a hold of you or ask about that financing if you're accredited or eligible?
Yeah, so if you're accredited, I'll just put this back up on the screen. You can reach me at Zayn at Altus.Gold or Zayn at AltusGold.com. The phone number's there as well. Please feel free to reach out. We can reach out via Arlen as well, via Kin, and I think we'll be able to connect us and get in touch and go from there.